All right, so I said that I will be doing more content on writing and publishing, so I wanted to come back and give you guys some really short tips on why and how you should outline your book. So first of all, I'm gonna say if you don't outline your book, I don't know why you tripping. I have friends that write and they say they just kind of go with the flow and all of that, and I'm just like, that's why it take y'all so long to finish books, like low key. That's you cannot you I mean people can do whatever the hell they want to do. But I don't advise for people to just write and go with the flow. Main reason being is because you spend more time that way. You don't really know where you're going. You end up in all over the place. You end up starting over. You end up doubting yourself. It's so many reasons as to why you should not start a book without an outline. So I'm going to give you a few of my reasons for you to write an outline, as well as some. So I'm going to give you my reasons on why you should be outlining your books, and I'm going to also tell you a little bit about how you outline your book. So number one is that you can't go from, let's just say, Houston, Texas, all the way to LA without using some type of GPS system, right? You're going to use your phone. You're going to use an actual GPS system if you still have one of those. You're going to use something to be able to tell you to get from point A to point Z, right? Well, your book is the same thing. The same thing with your book. You would not drive from this place to that place without a GPS. You wouldn't even probably drive from one place to another in your city without GPS. So treat your book that same way. You need to outline your book so that you can know where you're going. So if you start here, you need to make a left here, a right there, whatever. That was totally backwards. You need to make a left here and a right there in order to get to your final destination. The same thing goes for your book. You want to know where you're going. You need to know where things are going to take a turn. You need to know if there's going to be a cliffhanger, because that will tell you how to write it so that you can go to the next book if there's going to be a next book. If you have a climax. When we were taught like back in grade school about how to write, that structure is still the same. You have the beginning, the climax, the end, whatever. But when in writing, you can definitely have more than one climax. Like I'm sure you've read in the book before where there was like a lot of drama. All of those are climaxes. You can have more than one. So if you're going to have more than one, you need to know where they're going to appear. You need to know what they are, first of all, and where they're going to appear. And usually as you start writing, those things will reveal themselves to you. But you need to have some kind of basis to go off of. So you need to always have an outline so that you know how to get from one place to the other, so that you know where you're going, okay? The second thing is that you are able to meet your deadline. You're able to meet your deadline. So first of all, again, if you are writing, I hope you have a deadline. Like, I've talked to some of my other writer friends and I'm like, oh, so when is your book going to come out, and when are you scheduled to be done with your book? And they're like, oh, I don't put a limit on it. I'm like, why? Like, why? Because I mean, if you're writing for hobby, I guess that's okay. But if you're writing for business, if this is your passion and you want to eventually one day make a living off of it, time waits for nobody. And to just say that I don't put a limit on how long it takes me to write a book just sounds like procrastination and fear to me, like you playing games. And so with me, I always put a deadline on when my book is to be finished. Now, does that mean that it always goes that way? No, but you at least have something to go by. And usually when you have an outline and you're able to navigate your story, you can definitely go from beginning to end with no problems. You may go back and rewrite some things and have a whole completely new draft, and that's okay. But you're not out here just wondering. You definitely are able to keep up with your time frame. And so the other thing is that it eliminates the writer's block, okay? I personally don't believe in writer's block, but a lot of people do. The way I look at that is if you are writing and you don't know what's next, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I got writer's block. When really you don't have writer's block, you just don't know what the hell you finna write next because you didn't plan it. I have outlines on top of outlines for books that I haven't even written, but the outline is the first part for me. So at least if I decide to go right now and say, you know what, I'm ready to write another book, I can go straight to an outline and write that book from beginning to finish with no problem. Will I make changes? Probably, but I have something to go off of. So it eliminates you wasting time. It eliminates you saying that you have writer's block, which ain't real. And it also eliminates you from, it also keeps you from missing your deadline. So that's that. Okay, so we talked about why you should have one. Let's talk about how you can do an outline. So I have two ways. One is real simple, but a lot of people just don't get it. They don't know. So I'm just going to put them out there. So one way to outline is real simple. I think you should definitely start with your character development first or your storyline first, whichever one works best for you. Typically, I have like an idea for a story, and then I develop characters. Then I go back and do the storyline, if that makes sense. So, and if you're doing nonfiction, it's kind of almost the same. Like if you have an idea for a book, you typically, the idea stands alone, and it's like, okay, well now I need to break that down and see how I'm going to talk about this main idea. So it's, to me, a little bit more simple. But when you are outlining, you have those things first, your idea or your storyline or your characters or all of those things. Well, typically all of those things. And then you go into the phase where you're trying to decipher what goes first and what goes last. So you go ahead and number your paper just from 1 to 15, 1 to 10, 1 to 20, whatever works for you. I definitely don't say anything less than 10 because that's just real, you know. Yeah. Each number represents a chapter. So if you're going to have 10 chapters, you do 1 through 10. If you're going to have 20 chapters, you do 1 through 20, whatever works for you. And you may add more chapters or delete chapters as it goes, but you know, you have something to start with. Then you go and you write what's going to happen in each chapter as it goes, right? If you have a nonfiction book, you're going to write I call it like the titles of each chapter. So if you know you're writing a book, let's just say on domestic violence or being a domestic violence survivor, you may start with, telling like, if you're going to, it depends on how you write it, but you may start and talk about, I don't know, I'm just throwing stuff out there, but what domestic violence is, your first experience with domestic violence, when you had enough, what your turning point was. Well, like you just boom, 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 boom. Like you just want to outline each chapter and give it a title or a main theme for each chapter. Then you go back and you add the fluff. So I do like bullet points where I'll say, if it's especially for nonfiction, I'll do bullet points and I will have my main idea for the chapter or the title if I know it, and I do my 3 bullet points underneath it, or if I need more, I do more, and I will highlight stuff that I have to touch. Then when you go into your writing phase, you're just touching on those things that you already said you were going to talk about. So when you're doing fiction, pretty much the same. You're going to go in and you're going to have your numbers. You may not have a title for each chapter because the fiction books I read, they don't have titles. It's just, chapter 1, 2, 3, all so on and so on. So with that, you'll probably go in and you'll write, you start with your story from the beginning. So where you want the story to start from, whether it's past or present tense, or if it started from it'll be past or present tense. Then you will go, if you're going to go back in time or go forward in time or whatever, you'll make those kind of marks so that you can kind of get an idea of how this is going to flow. Then you'll simply put, well, okay, this is what's going to happen here, and this is what's going to happen here. And you just keep on going, And as you write that out, you'll realize that some things go together or that some things need to be separated into separate chapters. It just helps you to see where you're going. Okay, now another way that I do this is what I call a beat sheet. It's really something that I learned as far as screenwriting, not really novel writing or book writing, but it's one and the same. It can work either way. But with a beat sheet, you're basically just doing, like, for instance, bullet points. You don't necessarily put them in any type of order or whatever. You're just doing a beat sheet. You're just keeping up with the beats or making beats, so to say. So each bullet point is a beat, and you will write at each bullet point something that's happening. And usually you will use the name of your main character. So that way you're able to kind of follow, or whoever the story, whatever point of view you're using when you're telling the story, you'll write it from that person's point of view. You'll make sure you're keeping that person at the center of what you're writing. So you would say, let's just say your main character is John. John may go through, it may be a coming of age story or whatever. So you may start with you may start with John as a child. So you would say John is born May 9th, 1955. John goes through a crisis at the age of 5 when he witnesses his mother being beaten by his father. And he tries to save her and blah, blah, blah. And you don't have to be so descriptive, but it's just beats. It's like little short stuff, like John witnesses his mother being beaten. John grows up to resent his mother. John grows up, it's just beats, right? So you're just really giving yourself ideas, basically, in order to help you form the story. So that really would be considered outlining, but it kind of is. It helps you to get to the outline. So beat sheets are something that I really love because it's just like, it just helps you get everything out on the paper. So you can kind of play around with both of those and see what works for you, or you really kind of will probably do both of them. You may start with the beat sheet, then get to like the more detailed outline like I mentioned before. Whatever works for you, but you got to do something. So I try to keep this video very, very short because, like I said, I want you guys to be able to get something from it, but at the same time, I want you to be able to get it and go, because I know we have things to do. You have writing to do. So if you decide to use any of these tips that I gave you, or if you weren't doing an outline before, but now you are, like, let me know. Comment and let me know if this video helped you. Give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and, you know, definitely share it with someone who, you may not be a writer, but you may share it with someone who is, all right? So hopefully this helps you. Hopefully you got something from it. I'll be back with the next video in this series very soon. Bye.